Okay, I'll go back to sharing my screen. Oh, and I closed my, no, I closed Photoshop with all my pictures. I'm gonna have to kill myself. I'll get them back. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
A little technical moment while I get my pictures back. But I can talk while it's coming up. In the West, Western psychology focuses on what's wrong with us and how we can work on it and relieve our suffering. Buddhist and other Eastern psychologies focus on our potential. Of course, we still have to do the work of what we're clinging to or where we're deluded, just like in Western psychology. We have to clean up our act. But in Eastern psychology and Buddhist psychology, that work is a basis, a groundwork for becoming more aware, more clear, and more insightful than we are today. So it's more compassionate, kinder, friendlier. In Buddhist psychology is a map of our potential rather than just what's wrong with us. I'll just have to open these files. Give me one moment. Now, the only way I could record was to shut down the pictures for a minute. Okay, I've got this picture back, and I'm going to open a couple more pictures, and then we'll be back in business. Okay. Great. So this one of the things I like the most about Buddhism is that its description of the way my mind works seems very accurate to me. I don't know if you've had that experience as well, but onward with this. Everything arises because of multiple causes and conditions. Just take, for example, a simple example. You're in a room, it has a floor, right? And for this floor of the room that you're in to exist, you probably need wood, you need a carpenter, you need time, you need skills with building, and many other things. All these things, when brought together, cause the floor to be built. But each of these causes needs other causes. For example, to get wood, you need a forest. You need sunshine, rain. To get a carpenter, he has to have parents, breakfast, fresh air. Someone built the building and hired the carpenter who put the floor in. The carpenter needed parents, good health. So each of these things is brought on by other things. And if we start looking at things this way, see this interdependence, what happens is that every single thing in the cosmos comes into play. Nothing's left out. You just keep going. And you will find that we couldn't be here without supernovas. I forget what they do. Does anybody remember? There's something we have that only comes from supernovas. Nobody remembers? Guys, I should have looked it up, but I wasn't thinking. You know, distant stars, everything is in play as a cause and condition for everything else. And that's a pretty amazing thought because we think we're independent. So let's move on to our Thangka painting and see what it explains, okay? So here we have these 12 little segments, and I'm going to show you a close-up of each one. So I'm going to start right up here in the upper right, and I'll show you that one and we'll talk about it. And feel free to ask questions, just unmute yourself. Some of you are not muted, that's fine. Doesn't seem to be any bad noise in here. This is the first frame, and the name of this frame is Ignorance. And the picture is of a child, an ignorant child. Children were born into this world ignorant, who is leading a blind man, an old and sightless man, led by an ignorant child. They can't find their way. So this is ignorance. We're born into ignorance. We're born with a certain degree of spiritual blindness. Spiritual understanding for most of us comes quite gradually in life. And often through experience, through suffering, we learn what works. We learn what's skillful, what will not cause more suffering. But that's not how we start out. We start out in ignorance. So if we work hard, we can get around this wheel and be someplace else, maybe. So that's the start, ignorance, avijja. Okay, the second step after that is a picture of this potter. See him making his pots? This is called concoctions. He's making concoctions, or volitional actions. He's doing stuff. He's making things. As life goes on, we do stuff. We make stuff. The potter's the symbol. Every pot stands for the deeds that he does in this world. When he acts, when he speaks, when he thinks, when he makes things, when we act, when we make things, when we speak. Everything that we do arises from causes and conditions, including the cause that we were born ignorant. So this whole state here, this next thing arises out of the previous one. With our deeds, with our pots, we throw as we live our lives, the pots we throw, and with our deeds and with our thoughts and our speaking, we mold our karma. Karma is the ultimate example of causes and conditions, cause and effect. So we'll talk more about karma. Okay, so these first two that we just looked at are said to be about past life or the past in our life. I guess this ignorance and these concoctions that we make will ultimately determine our future life. Okay, the third step is consciousness. And there you see the monkey in the tree, and this is the monkey mind. This monkey is swinging from branch to branch. And our consciousness grows and takes shape as our life progresses. So as we get older, we become aware that that monkey is always swinging from branch to branch. My theory, which I've expressed before, is that the internet is such a success because of the genius, I think he was an industrial psychologist, forget his name, who invented hyperlinking. Because hyperlinking is what we do. That's how our minds work. Like today, I was like, oh, I need to really get up on dependent origination. I'm going to search for dependent origination. Isn't that interesting? Here's something called transcendental origination. Wonder what that is. Oh, yeah, remember, that's the happy version. I wonder what year the Buddha lived in. Gee, a long time ago. Was Confucius alive then? Let's check about Confucius. How about Alexander the Great? They say the Axis age in the year 500 paved the way for Jesus. Oh, look, the Dalai Lama wrote a book about Buddhism and Christianity. Is that hyperlinking or what? And isn't that what we do in our heads? So the internet, the hyperlink is an amazing invention. I think we're all hooked. Mind's a bubble machine. It never stops putting out thoughts. The monkey swings from tree to from branch to branch for our entire lives. And that's consciousness. You want to be conscious? You get a monkey. It's great to know that. You know, I didn't realize my mind was doing that until I got quite a bit older. Okay. Number 4. This is a picture of 2 people in a boat. These are mind and body. Nama, Rupa. Nama is the mind who sits in the back of the boat. And it's our mental component. It's the part of us that is mentally there. Rupa, which means matter, is our physical component, the body, and by extension, matter, the entire physical world. So Nama means name, Rupa means matter. So when we let go of all names and forms, that's enlightenment. Nama and Rupa, our minds and our bodies are one thing. They're totally interdependent. A really good example, dependently arising together. So spiritual energy, physical energy, that's what's in this boat. Mind sits in the back and rows the boat. The body rides as a passenger. They are inseparably floating on the sea of life. One of my favorite teachers, Lee Brasington, told me that insight meditation has specific insights that come in a specific order. I didn't know that. I still want to investigate that. And he said the first insight is mind and body are 2. Mind is in charge. Pretty cool. I think that's very useful. I mean, I march myself to the dentist. I don't know about you. Next. The 5th section is the 6 senses. This is a house, and the house is the body. A good image for a body. And then this house has 5 windows in this column here and a door. The 5 senses, the 5 physical senses are these 5 windows. Everything we know about the outer world comes in through those 5 openings. We don't know anything else. We have the eyes, which give us sight, the ears, which let us hear, the tongue we can taste, the nose we can smell, and with the skin we can touch, we can feel bodily sensation, touch. So, or other, I guess there's like a sense of touch inside the body too. So that's amazing. There's nothing else. If we didn't have those 5 senses, we would be locked in a prison. Now, sometimes I think there's other senses, but you know what, for this purpose of this talk, these are the senses. So the door down here, this door is the 6th sense, which in our tradition is, you know, kind of what's a 6th sense? I have this extra special feeling. But in Buddhism, the 6th sense is the mind. The mind plays an enormous role in how we perceive everything. I wanted to let you know that Rick Maddock, who's a MD and a psychotherapist and a neurologist, and is an active neurology researcher at UC Davis and comes to Auburn once every few months. I think he's coming in 2 weeks. So tell your friends he's so fabulous. And the reason I mention him is because one time he showed us a drawing to illustrate how sense data comes in the eyes and jumps and goes onto the optic nerve to go up to the brain. But with each point of sense data going up the optic nerve, there are 9 points of preconceptions coming down from the mind and joining it. So everything that comes in is is modulated by what we've seen before and what we expect and our preconceptions. So that's one way in which the mind is so important in how we relate to the world. I think it's so, you know, you hear things about like eyewitnesses are always wrong, that sort of thing. Eyewitness testimony is not worth much. They're finally realizing that people think they've seen what they haven't seen. Okay. So these 5 that we've looked at kind of set the picture for who we are, what we've got going for us. Stuff comes in, we're kind of ignorant, we do things, you know, we act, we speak, we have this volition, the potter, we're conscious, we're swinging around the trees, and we have our body mind, and then stuff comes in the sense doors. Here's where a new section kind of starts. And this section is really important because it has in it kind of a key to how we end our suffering. Okay, next picture. A man and a woman are embracing. The name of this picture is contact. I mean, that's pretty great contact to be embracing another person, pretty strong contact. So that's a symbol of any kind of contact. Anything coming through any sense door is a contact. So I see an ice cream cone, contact. You know, I see a dog out there, contact. I taste something, that's a contact. Contact only happens because we have those 6 senses. And we hear, smell, taste, touch. What am I missing? See. Okay, so that's contact. So here's what happens when something comes in a sense door. And this is what's going to lead to our suffering. Uh-oh. One kiss and he's got an arrow in his eye. That's not the message. It's much more symbolic than that, but I couldn't help it. This frame is feeling. But it's not just the whole range of emotions, it's specifically Vedana. Vedana is kind of a pre-feeling, which is either pleasant or unpleasant. Pleasure or pain. So this is an example of pain, but it's symbolizing all Vedanas, whether something's pleasant or unpleasant. Another thing Rick told us, oh, and if you want to catch how to get on to see him, you know, it'll be on the Mountain Stream website, homepage, right at the top. All the Zoom meetings are there. Anyway, he showed us he said another thing, which is that when contact happens, the Vedana doesn't happen later. It's attached. It comes in practically on the same nerve endings at the same time. You experience something, you like it or you don't. Now, sometimes it's more neutral, but it's not like something you could like say, oh, I'm having a contact, let me be careful in case I like it too much or I don't like it. It just happens at the same time, pretty much. So that's how we're wired. So it's helpful for us to be aware of it because this is the point where we go down the tubes. You can imagine if that happened, you would go down the tubes. So, but it happens in one of 2 ways. This is the moment where we have to catch ourselves. If it's pleasant, we want more. If it's unpleasant, we want it out of here. And both of those states are very similar. They're completely asleep. They're completely, you know, mindless. They're reactive. There's no presence to what's happening in the actual moment. There's just this huge desire for the moment to be different. I want more, I want less. So even though we think of you know, aversion and desire as opposites, they're really very similar when you look at it from the point of view of someone who has equanimity. So this is the moment where we can catch ourselves. and change everything. If this were a computer game, I don't know if you ever played a computer game where you, I don't know, you probably shoot everybody and when they're all dead, you find a little door that you can go through to the next level, some secret door. This is the secret door. We haven't been shooting anybody. I'm sorry for that image, but it's probably accurate. This is the little door where we can get off the wheel. If we can catch ourselves, if we can see, oh my God, I'm so caught in desire. I'm so caught in getting this out of here. I hate this, hate, hate, hate. If we can catch ourselves, we can step back. We can talk ourselves through. I'm not being skillful. I don't need that wondrous new thing. I can live with this horrible thing. It's probably not going to kill me. Even if it does, can I be present? We can learn, as Tony Bernard said, Krishnamurti said, I don't mind what happens. I love that quote. I've been thinking about it since Tony said it here 2 weeks ago. What's the secret of your equanimity, Krishnamurti? I don't mind what happens. Whatever comes in the sense doors, and whatever the feelings we are about them, can we maintain equanimity? Can we catch ourselves and come back to the present moment? If we do that, we won't suffer. But alas, that is not the way of the world. So we had our first 5 pictures. We're kind of setting the stage for who we are as human beings, all the way up to the 6 senses. Then you have contact, feeling, and those 2 are a very powerful moment. And usually we move on to this state of identification. This picture is craving. And the Pali word for craving is tanha, which means thirst. We want this. This is a picture of a woman offering a man a drink. And in some Thangka paintings, she's offering him an opium pipe. Or some other pictures, it's a man hoarding a pot of gold. So this picture is craving. This is where the desire has been stimulated and grown, and it's now become craving, and we're getting lost. Got to have that drink right now. Craving moves on to the next one, which is called clinging. And if you remember the Four Noble Truths, they call the Four Noble Truths Dependent Origination Light. And the reason they call the Four Noble Truths Dependent Origination Light is that, you know, it's the same message. There's suffering. We saw that. We got all the way around to the guy with the arrow in his eyes. And then the second noble truth is the cause of suffering is clinging. Here we are. This guy is hoarding huge barrels of fruit that he probably can't even use. He can't pick enough fruit. He wants fruit. He's got to have it. This is clinging. Hoarding is a really good example of clinging because it's actually holding on to stuff. Sometimes we are under a trance of sensual entanglement, and that's why we cling so much. We want to keep the object of our desire, whatever it is. But deep inside, we know that everything is going to pass away. And that's why there's suffering when we cling. And this is the great cause of suffering in the second noble truth. We want more and more and more. Also, we cling to our amazing self, me, which is going to become and become and become, and you'll see in the next frame. So the third noble truth is that there's a way out of the suffering, which we already covered, which is to wake up and practice the Eightfold Path. So that's why the Four Noble Truths are Dependent Origination Light. They both go to clinging. So this is becoming. This is a picture of a new couple, a new bride, a new groom, a couple that just gotten married. They're in their little marriage tent. They have a new identity. They're becoming something else. As individuals, it's called bhavana. You've probably heard that Pali word. It means becoming. So it's about the self, becoming, having this new identity. We always want to become. I want to become a doctor. I want to become a lawyer. I want to become a Buddha. I want to become a better person. I want to become. I want to grow and own more and do more and be more. That's becoming. So it's another form of suffering because it kind of believes in an independent self that's not dependent on anything else, you know, and dependent co-arising says that everything's dependent. I'm the Marlboro man, you know, the woman of everyone's dreams. I'm like this special become person, which is a suffering, an illusion to cause suffering. So then we move on to the last two. How bad am I on time? Oh, pretty bad. I'll finish up and we can talk. The last two are birth and death. So these are the future. The first two were kind of our past. These are our future. So birth, this woman is actually has a baby coming out. I'm pretty sure that's what that is. So they're not squeamish. Crouching woman gives birth to a child. Just like we give birth to a new self over and over. And we are reborn into what we are becoming. Sometimes, you know, my life, this life that I've been living seems like I've been reborn many times into many different lifetimes. They were so different. I was a kid, you know, and then I was a grown up. I had a first marriage. That was a whole life. I went back to school. That was a life. I got this amazing job. That was a life. And, you know, and now I have this life now, and it's very different from the others. I bet you have similar kind of feeling about your life, that there's many lives in your life. So, and then the outcome of birth is old age and death. This guy has all his belongings packed up and he's ready to leave the body. He is contemplating death. And I love this bird. I don't know the meaning. It kind of looks like some kind of, you know what it is? It must be the vulture. And they put the bodies on Vulture Peak. I don't know for sure. Kind of looks like some kind of succubus or something, doesn't it? But he's contemplating leaving the body. He's contemplating death, the inevitable end of all earthly existence. He's ready to be reborn and suffer some more. That attitude. So there you go. That's what we went around the wheel. And so right here at this point of contact, and then the guy with the arrow in his eye, that's like the escape hatch. That's the place to stay awake. So I'd be happy to open this up to some discussion, if you would like.
Wait a minute. Say that last thing again, the escape hatch.
Right. These two down here, this one is the man and the woman in an embrace, contact.
Yeah, contact.
Right, and then this one is Vedana. You either like it or you don't, and that's where you get caught. And if you don't wake up to the fact that you want more or you want less, that's what happens in this next spot here. I want more, I want less. If you can wake up to that, you don't suffer. I don't need that. I can put up with that. So this is the escape right here. But then if you don't escape, pretty soon you're picking 50 pounds of fruit off a tree and trying to keep them stored, because even though you can't eat them all. Questions, please. Comments.
Mary Helen, in that last one, the very ending one, were there two birds there or just one?
It's interesting. I didn't notice. I never thought about two. Let's look.
Over on the right, it looks like a dark bird. And I
Oh
thought,
yeah, look at that. There's a second eye and a beak.
and then on the left, it looks more like a crane or a swan or something like that.
A light bird and a dark bird.
Right.
So interesting. Great symbolism. I'm so glad you noticed that. I never noticed that. What do you think this is? Looks like kind of a stupa. I don't know what that is.
It does look like a stupa.
Who knows? But he's kind of cool with his backpack, ready to move on. Two birds.
Light and dark. I wonder what that's supposed to mean.
Well, maybe it's the bardo, because in the middle of the circle, we have, I don't know if you were at the last talk, but there's the part dark side where all the demons are taking you down, and then the other half of the circle is kind of the Buddhist yin yang. The other half of the circle is light, and the devas are all taking you up. So that's the bardo.
Oh,
That's the bardo symbol there. Could be.
that makes sense.
It does. I know in Buddhism, when someone dies, I think they spend 60 days in the bardo, working everything out. Not sure. If anybody knows, please chime in. Any other thoughts? Was that some new information for you?
That was fascinating.
Great. I'm really glad you liked it, Joan. I always find it fascinating too.
No, it's amazing. The whole, each picture is so amazing.
Isn't it? And the way
The stories that are attached to each one.
I said in the last talk that the Thangka paintings are teaching tools in a pre-literate society, because no one can read. So, but they can understand pictures, and the pictures will remind them. And that when I was at Chartres Cathedral, I learned that the stained glass windows in the Middle Ages served the same purpose. They told the Bible stories to people who couldn't read them.
Yeah.
Mary Helen, are there some particular websites you go to get some of the background information that you've been relaying to us?
Well, I wanted to show you Robert Thurman's page on the Wheel of Life, and I was unable to find it. It used to be on NPR. But if you Google Robert Thurman, he talks about some other Thangka paintings. You know who he is. I mentioned him last time. He's Uma Thurman's dad. But the Dalai Lama called him a national treasure. He's a professor of Buddhism at Columbia.
Yeah, he's a scholar.
He's a
scholar of Tibetan Buddhism.
Yes, and he's very interesting to listen to, and he has a lot of video stuff up there. So just Google him and go look at some of them. There's one where he talks about a Thangka painting. I couldn't find the wonderful one where he talks about the Wheel of Life, but it wasn't Dependent Origination. It was only the first talk, the inner wheel.
Can you put his name in the chat?
Yeah, sure. I will. It's Robert, Thurman,
Okay.
like Uma Thurman. But I have to shut this down.
That's all right.
Oh no, I can stop the share without closing the window. Okay, let me put his name in the chat.
That's all right. I got it. I needed to have you say it again.
Oh, someone might like it.
Did you say the one you were looking for was on NPR?
Yeah, but it wasn't there anymore.
I just opened up. Did he have others on NPR? Because I just
Yeah, others on NPR, and I recommend that.
Okay, because I just opened it
Yeah, and there were like 3 of them, but there used to be the one on the Wheel of Life. I can't
There's
find
one
it.
here titled The Legend of the Wheel of Life.
Go ahead and click on it, because when I got there was nothing.
The legend about the Wheel of Life is it is that one thing.
Yeah, it's a talk, a 20.
Oh, great, great.
Yeah.
Go for it later.
I will. Thank you.
I definitely listened to him a lot. I learned a lot from him. And I just go to all kinds of websites and Wikipedia, and I see polywords and I look them up because each one of these steps has a name. Like ignorance is avijja, and becoming is bhava, B-H-A-V-A. So when you look those things up, you learn a lot. But I just, hyperlink, monkey mind, my way through everything. So funny. Can you please review one more time each step of the wheel? Is Deborah, do you still want that done? I can do that real quick. Why don't I do that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we'll look at we'll start with the blind man. We're born into ignorance. And we are like an ignorant child leading an old and blind man. And ignorance, we just don't know anything. We don't know. Well, I didn't know much when I was a kid. I grew up in a fog, actually. Yeah, it's partly from having, a difficult family life, but I think there's a lot of fogginess when you're little.
Yeah.
Because you're like pushing away the clouds, everything's like, what is this place? Okay, potter. The potter is volition, acting, acts and deeds and thoughts and making things. So this is what we do, and we're doing it out of ignorance. So we're going to mess up and create some karma. Karma is the ultimate expression of cause and effect. What goes around comes around. All right, the third one is our consciousness. Our consciousness arises. I don't know. I guess babies are probably, their consciousness is developing. I guess nobody has asked no one's gotten a good answer from any babies yet about what's going on in there. But the consciousness is the monkey swinging from the tree, according to this paradigm. Hyperlink. And then we have mind and body. Mind and body are 2. Mind is in charge. And that's quite a lot different from the kind of hippie mind and body are 1, Well, they are in a way, but they're also, mind is in charge. And I like that. I like knowing that, hearing that. So now the stage is set. And we move on to the 6 senses. So it's not just us. Everything up to here was just us in a vacuum. Now stuff starts coming in the 6 sense doors. And we're not alone. And we have contact. This is called contact. And so we see, we touch, we taste, we hear. Isn't it amazing that that's all we have? Everything we know so much. Good Lord. And we spin such fabulous stuff out of it. But it all just came in those doors, plus the mind. I think that's pretty amazing to reduce everything that we've ever experienced to these 5 doors. And inextricably connected to, am I in the right place? Yeah. And so this is the 5, this is the senses. This is the contact when something comes in and hits us. And so this is a man and a woman embracing strong contact. And at this point, it's not just a sense door passively receiving. we're on it. So there's like a knowing here. We're having an experience of contact. And along with that, at the same time, according to recent neurological research, we either like it or we don't like it. You know, if it's anything intense, that's very strong. There's some debate as to whether anything's neutral or some things are just not so charged. So if it's, and here, this is the moment where if it's pleasant, we want more. If it's unpleasant, if it's painful, we want it gone. So this is the moment where we move from the present into a state of rejecting the present. We want to change the present moment. We are not okay with things as they are. We are minding what happens. I mind that. This is the moment where we can catch ourselves. This is the moment where we can learn not to mind. We can see, let go. If we can let go in this moment, we're free. I mean, liberate means let go, doesn't it? But if we don't quite make it, we're going down the tubes. This is craving, thirst, gotta have it. Gotta have this drink or opium that she's handing me. This smacks of Eve a little bit, doesn't it? I think there's some sexism in here, but I don't know. I guess you have to forgive people from 500 BC. And then this guy's lost it. He is clinging. And this is, according to the Four Noble Truths, the second noble truth says the cause of suffering is clinging. So we made it here. He's hoarding all these baskets of fruit. He can't get enough. Even though he knows that it's all going to rot. And that's where the suffering is. Because the truth is, he can't hold on to anything. But he's trying. And he's doomed. And this is fruit. But worse yet is with the self. Here's this new couple, a new life. They just got married. They've got a new identity. We all want to become something new, something better. But it's just like hoarding fruit. You know, it depends on your attitude to it, of course. There's nothing wrong with taking a class or getting a good job or anything. It's just your attitude towards it. If you're caught up in it, it doesn't matter what it is. And then we go to the end. Birth. Woman gives birth. We have all these different lifetimes. And finally, we end with death. He's got his pack ready to go. He's contemplating death. And the two birds, I love that. One is very kind of down and hunkered. This one's so beautiful. Aren't they interesting? Their difference. I love that. So there's all a quick recap. I hope that's helpful. Thanks for the idea, Deborah. All right. So it's time to stop. I really enjoyed this group tonight. You guys are all seemed like good listeners.
All right, Helen, how would we go about listening to your recording? Well, we might look at the Thangka that you sent us via email.